Thank you, Senator Coates. I'll use my time now, and then I'll turn it over to my friend from New York. You know, as we listen to the conversation that we've just had, and we talk about the scale of the infrastructure challenges we have in this country, which also symmetrically indicates that we have a huge opportunity in this country to make this investment and get Americans to work. It's clear that this problem that we have is kind of a multidimensional problem, meaning we have it for a variety of reasons. We have it for political reasons. We have it for financial reasons. In other words, there hasn't been sufficient money allocated against some of these issues. And we have it, quite frankly, because the world has moved very quickly. And the infrastructure is a long lead, long tail business, and there's been rapid changes in the world, particularly in the last 20 or 25 years, that particularly around logistics and communications and energy, et cetera, have accelerated much faster than people could reasonably have predicted. So there's lots of reasons we have this problems, which to me means we should have multiple solutions against this problem. The classic, you know, we need many tools in the toolkit. And in my opinion, this issue is really should be our central, and I think, Governor, I think you said this very well in your testimony, should be our central kind of economic domestic priority. And all of the solutions that we've heard, increasing privatization, reducing regulatory burden, coming up with a variety of infrastructure financing tools, should all be considered very seriously, because they're probably all needed. As the governor said, the cost of doing nothing is in fact not nothing, and we're paying that price, and we should be putting our shoulder against all of these things, because in fact they pencil out. This is actually a really good investment for us to be making in this country. As Mr. Edwards said, we shouldn't be making all this investment. A lot of it can be done by the private sector, and we should be laying that groundwork. But at the end of the day, there'll be certain core governmental investments that have to be made. There's certain core financings that have to be made. One of the things we've tried to work on with our legislation is also thinking about the time horizon. Because to some extent, I think this notion of shovel-ready projects, while it's catchy and it makes sense, doesn't always correlate with good infrastructure policy. Because in fact, if you travel around the country, and you look at decisions that have been made around infrastructure, even if they will take years to actually implement because of the scale of the projects, create really good economic activity immediately because people know they're going to happen. In other words, if there's a commitment to widen a port, and it's going to take 5 or 6 years to do it, even with accelerated approval process, et cetera, everything will start changing around that port. And which is why we've tried to come up with an entity that can operate in a disconnected way from the normal political cycle. So maybe, Governor, I'd be interested in your views on how we should think about the time frame for some of these projects and planning in general, and then maybe Mr. Edwards, maybe you'd comment on that as well.
Well, in terms of the time frame, one, right now, if you read the ASCE report, we need to fix it first. Although we do need new capacity. I mean, there's a stunning statistic that since 1980, our percentage of vehicles on the road has increased by 104%. Since 1980, our lane capacity has increased by 4%. So we need to expand our infrastructure, but first we need to fix it first. And the good thing about fix it first is it is very stimulative because you don't have to go through EISs. The reason I was able to get work done in 3 months is because we were fixing bridges, we were fixing roads. There's very little, there's no requirement for an EIS at all, so you can get to those projects quickly. Right now, the biggest challenge for America is to fix what we have. I mean, again, I hope you can get your staff to read the full ASCE report. It's outright frightening, and frightening and disturbing. So if you fix it first, that's going to speed up the timeline. For projects, the one thing I would differ with Mr. Edwards on is there has to be an entity to help fund regional projects. So it does no good for, let's say, the state of Pennsylvania to put in a rail system that goes through to Ohio and then all the way up to Minnesota, let's say, with one type of new technology. If Ohio's going to have a new type of technology, that won't work. The trains won't be able to run. We have a maglev system. They have a conventional high-speed system. So there's got to be a vehicle for those projects. So there's got to be long-term vision with good controls and good speed mechanisms, but fix it first is going to solve a lot of our problems.
Mr. Edwards, very quickly.
You touched on something really important, which is it's not the short-term jobs, which is often the focus in Washington. It's long-term efficiency. With seaports, we need to make them more efficient. The issue is not the short-term Army Corps of Engineer jobs to dredging seaports. It's the long-term efficiency that our manufacturers and producers can have more efficient seaports to take the bigger ships that are coming with a bigger Panama Canal. That's the issue. And with seaports, for example, they can be fully privatized. Britain is fully privatized. Most of its seaports, the top seaports in the world, Hong Kong and Singapore, are private. The advantage is private company, they see customer demand rising, they see the shipping demand rising, they go out to the market, they raise capital, they do the work, they don't have to go to Washington to lobby. If you have private ports, they can get things done quickly.
Right.
But
Thank
they can't dredge. And the most difficult thing that the Atlantic ports have to do is dredge to the depth that can accept those big ships coming through the Panama Canal. Only 2 of our 12 ports are dredged sufficiently to do that. We're going to lose a whole boatload of business to Canada because of that.
It's a really important point.